The rain struck the windows like someone trying to break into the house. I stood in the Whitmore dining room with water dripping from my coat and knew, before anyone spoke, that something had already been decided without me. My stepfather sat at the head of the table. Graham Whitmore always looked most comfortable when someone else was afraid. His silver hair was perfectly combed. His cuff links caught the chandelier light. Beside him, Vanessa watched me with her hands folded in her lap, her expression polished into something that almost resembled sympathy. Almost. "Sit down, Lena," Graham said. "I'd rather stand." A folder waited on the table. Cream paper. Black ribbon. My name printed across the front. Lena Hart. Not Lena Whitmore. He only used my real name when he wanted to remind me I had never truly belonged in his family. "What is this?" Graham slid the folder toward me. "A solution." I opened it. The first page carried the Whitmore development seal. The second contained numbers large enough to make my stomach tighten. Debt agreements. Penalties. Transfer clauses. Then I reached the final page. Marriage settlement. My vision blurred. The contract named Damian Cross as the receiving party. The man newspapers called a businessman when they were being careful. The man people whispered about when they thought no one was listening. The most feared mafia boss in the city. My signature was already at the bottom. I stared at it. The curve of the L was wrong. Too graceful. Mine always leaned forward, as if even my name was trying to escape. "You forged this." Vanessa looked away. Graham lifted his glass. "Don't be dramatic. You signed my name to a marriage contract. You should be grateful. Mr. Cross is canceling a considerable debt." The words entered the room quietly. Then they found their meaning. "You sold me." Thunder rolled beyond the windows. Graham did not flinch. "I protected this family. I am your family." His eyes hardened. "No, Lena. You are your father's unfinished obligation." The sentence struck deeper than I wanted him to see. My father had been dead for 11 years. Everything he left me had passed through Graham's hands first. The house. The company shares. The trust one had never been allowed to examine. I looked down again. Several figures in the margins had been corrected in violet ink. Vanessa's favorite color. She used the same pen for thank you cards, invitations, even grocery lists. My stepsister noticed where I was looking and quickly placed her hand over the page. "You don't understand how serious this is," she whispered. "Then explain it." Graham stood. "If you refuse, Whitmore Development collapses. The authorities find your name on accounts you managed. Your father's remaining estate disappears into legal fees. And when Damian Cross comes to collect what he is owed, I will no longer be able to protect you." A knock sounded at the front door. Not loud. It did not need to be. Every person in the room went still. Footsteps crossed the marble foyer. Slow. Measured. Followed by others that stopped before entering. Then Damian Cross walked into the dining room. He wore a charcoal suit dark enough to absorb the light. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Black hair brushed away from a face that revealed nothing. He did not look like a monster. That frightened me more. Monsters were supposed to announce themselves. Damian only looked at the room once, and somehow everyone else seemed smaller afterward. His gaze settled on me. Not my dress. Not my trembling hands. My face. "Miss Hart." His voice was low. Controlled. I held up the contract. "Did you know they forged my signature?" Graham inhaled sharply. Damian took the papers from me. His eyes moved over the final page, then paused at the violet corrections. Something changed in his expression. Not surprise. Recognition. But it vanished too quickly for me to understand. "The agreement stands," he said. My heartbeat stumbled. Graham smiled with relief and reached for the silver locket around my neck. That belongs to the family estate. Before his fingers touched it, Damien caught his wrist. He did not squeeze. He did not raise his voice. Take your hand away from her. Graham obeyed. Damien released him and turned to me. He lifted the locket gently, placed it back against my chest, and stepped away. The gesture felt almost kind. Almost. You're coming with me, he said. I won't be dragged out of this house. No one will drag you. Outside, a black car waited beneath the rain. I could have screamed. I could have begged. I could have given Graham one final chance to remember that I had once called him Dad. Instead, I closed the forged contract, lifted my chin, and walked past them all. I entered Damien Cross's car under my own power. For several blocks, neither of us spoke. The city lights slid across the windows like broken gold. Then Damien placed the contract between us and tapped the false signature with one finger. Your family did not sell you because of what they owed me, he said. His dark eyes met mine. They sold you because of what you might discover. Damien's estate stood above the Hudson like it had been built to survive a siege. No gates opened until the car's windows were scanned. No guard spoke as we passed. The silence felt organized, less like peace than a weapon waiting to be used. Inside, polished stone reflected warm amber light. I had expected something colder. Marble. Steel. Rooms designed to make visitors feel small. Instead, the house smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. Damien led me upstairs and opened a door at the end of a quiet corridor. The suite beyond was larger than my apartment. A bedroom. A sitting room. A private bathroom. Fresh clothes waited inside the wardrobe, all in my size. I turned toward him. How long have you been preparing this? Long enough. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I'm giving tonight. I searched his face for satisfaction. Triumph. Any sign that bringing me here had completed some cruel transaction. There was none. Where will you sleep? The East Wing. I blinked. You're not staying here? His gaze rested on me for one measured second. Did you want me to? Heat touched my face. Anger followed quickly enough to hide it. I want my phone. I want a copy of the contract. And I want access to every document connected to Whitmore's debt. One corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. Something quieter. You negotiate quickly. I've had an educational evening. He removed my phone from his coat and placed it in my hand. No broken screen. No missing SIM card. No password demanded. That unsettled me more than confiscation would have. The contract is fraudulent, he said. It cannot make you my wife. Then why accept it? Because the city believes what I allow it to believe. As long as people think you belong under my name, touching you becomes expensive. I don't belong under anyone's name. His eyes sharpened. No, he said. You don't. The answer came too easily. For one dangerous moment, I believed him. I moved toward the door. Then I'm leaving. Damien did not block me. He crossed to the window instead and pulled aside the curtain. Below, beyond the iron fence, two dark sedans sat on the opposite road with their lights off. They followed us from the Whitmore house, he said. Neither vehicle belongs to me. My fingers tightened around the phone. Who are they? That is what I intend to learn before you walk outside. I hated the calm in his voice. I hated more that it made me feel safer. An hour later, I sat in Damien's library with Graham's debt record spread across a black walnut table. Cole Mercer stood near the door, silent and watchful. Damien remained across from me, sleeves rolled to his forearms, saying nothing while I worked. The invoices looked ordinary until I compared their dates. Then the pattern appeared. 3 construction suppliers. Identical payment amounts. Different account numbers. Each transfer repeated 48 hours later under a second vendor name. Someone duplicated the invoices, I said. Damien leaned closer. His shoulder nearly touched mine. I noticed the faint scar across his knuckles before I noticed how warm he was. These approvals carry your credentials, he said. They aren't mine. Your authorization code says otherwise. My code changed every month. These use one I retired 2 years ago. I pulled another file toward me. There it was again. My employee identification. My digital signature. My tax number. Someone had built a financial trail designed to end at me. Damien studied the columns, then looked at me differently, not as cargo, not as a frightened woman in his house. As an equal holding a weapon neither of us fully understood. He unlocked a steel cabinet and set 3 more ledgers before me. Full archive access, he said. Cole's eyebrows lifted. I opened the first ledger. Before I could read, a guard entered carrying my old suitcase. Delivered from Whitmore House. Nothing inside had been packed with care. Dresses crushed beneath shoes. Family photographs face down. A white card rested on top. The message was written in violet ink. Come home before the monster learns what you did. My breath stopped. Damien took the card, read it once, and placed it beside the false accounts. His voice was quiet when he spoke. You were never their payment, Lena. I looked up. His expression had become something colder than anger. You were the evidence they expected me to destroy. The violet word stayed between us long after the card was removed. I did not sleep. By sunrise, the ledgers had become a second city, one built from shell companies, false invoices, and numbers designed to disappear before anyone asked where they had gone. Damien entered the library carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one beside me. I did not touch it. If I help you trace this money, I said, you stop deciding what I can handle. He remained standing across the table. No hidden meetings about me. No moving me without warning. No more answers that mean nothing. His expression tightened. You're asking for access to matters that can get people killed. I was already placed inside one. Silence stretched between us. Then Damien pulled out the chair opposite mine. Agreed. I waited. But honesty works both ways, he added. You find something, you tell me. You remember something, you tell me. You do not investigate alone. It sounded less like control now. More like fear wearing a tailored suit. Agreed, I said. We worked for 4 hours. The missing money had not gone directly into Graham's accounts. That would have been too simple. It moved through construction projects that existed only on paper, then through charities with empty offices, then into a private trust carrying my father's initials. J.H. My hands went cold. That trust was established for me, I whispered. My father mentioned it before he died. Damien slid the original incorporation document toward me. The beneficiary line had been altered. My name was still faintly visible beneath the correction fluid. For years, Graham had told me my father left debts. He had kept me grateful for food that had been purchased with my own money. Something inside me broke without making a sound. Damien did not reach for me. He simply remained there while I learned how thoroughly my childhood had been stolen. Later, Cole escorted us to a private bank downtown. The building closed its doors the moment Damien entered. A manager placed a new access card in front of me. The balance displayed on the screen made me stop breathing. This is mine. The portion we recovered, Damien said. I looked at him. You're giving it to me? No, his answer was immediate. I'm returning it. No gift. No debt between us. For the first time since leaving the Whitmore house, I felt the ground beneath my feet. That evening, Damien took me to one of his legitimate shipping offices. A dispute had erupted between 2 managers over a missing cargo payment. I expected threats. Instead, Damien listened. He asked 3 questions. Examined 1 receipt. Then dismissed the younger man everyone had blamed and turned to the senior manager. You used his password because you assumed fear would make him confess. The man's face drained of color. Damien did not touch him. Return every dollar. Resign before midnight. Your family keeps their home because they had no part in your choice. The man nodded and left. Power without spectacle. Punishment without cruelty. I hated that it changed something in me. Back at the estate, Damien no longer stood over my shoulder while I worked. He sat beside me. Asked what I saw. Waited for my answer. Near midnight, I opened a folder buried inside an encrypted archive. A security authorization appeared at the bottom. D. Cross. The file had been created 3 weeks before Graham presented the contract. 3 weeks before Damien walked into that dining room and pretended to see me for the first time. I turned the monitor toward him. His face became unreadable. You knew my name before they offered me to you. Damien looked at the date. Then at me. He did not deny it. Say something, I whispered. Damien closed the laptop. 3 weeks of preparation disappeared beneath his hand, but the date had already burned itself into me. I knew Graham was moving money through your credentials, he said. I knew someone inside Whitmore intended to place you between us. So you investigated me. I investigated the danger around you. That sounds kinder. It isn't meant to. His honesty cut cleaner than an excuse. Damien told me he had watched Graham's accounts for months. When my name began appearing on fraudulent transfers, he ordered Cole to build a private file. He suspected my stepfamily would use me as leverage. He had expected blackmail. Not a marriage contract. You could have warned me. With what proof? With the truth. The truth was incomplete. I stood so quickly the chair struck the floor. Then you should have let me decide what to do with it. Damien's jaw tightened. Incomplete information gets people killed. And secrecy makes them prisoners. The words landed between us. For once, he had no answer. I walked to the door, then stopped with my hand on the frame. If I remain here, the rules change. His eyes lifted to mine. You do not enter my room without permission. You do not call me your wife in public unless I agree first. And you do not make another decision about my future behind my back. A long silence. Then he nodded once. All 3. No negotiation. No warning disguised as concern. Just agreement. The following afternoon, I returned to my father's archived records. The papers smelled of dust and damp cardboard. Most were useless, old permits, faded receipts, engineering notes written in his narrow handwriting. Near sunset, I found a sentence repeated across 3 separate pages. Keep what opens, not what shines. My father used to say it when I was little. I had assumed he meant people. Character over appearance. My fingers rose to the silver locket. The pendant had never opened. Not fully. Its hinge was decorative, or so Graham had always claimed. I pressed my thumbnail beneath the inner rim. The silver backing shifted. A tiny brass key dropped into my palm. For several seconds, I could only hear my own breathing. Damien stepped closer but stopped before entering my space. May I? The question affected me more than it should have. I placed the key in his hand. Before he could examine it, Cole appeared in the doorway. The east elevator is ready. Damien moved toward the hall. I followed, still holding the locket. The elevator doors opened. Damien stepped forward. A faint metallic scent reached me. Oil. Fresh oil. I looked at the control panel. The maintenance seal had been cut, then carefully pressed back into place. Don't. I caught Damien's sleeve and pulled him away just as the elevator shuddered. The lights inside went dark. Somewhere below us, metal screamed against metal. Cole reached for his weapon. Guards flooded the corridor. Damien stared at the empty shaft, then at my hand still gripping his arm. For the first time since I met him, his control cracked. Not from fear for himself. From the realization that I had noticed what his entire security team had missed. That night, neither of us returned to the archive. We sat on the terrace while rain moved across the river in silver curtains. Who taught you to expect betrayal? I asked. Damien looked toward the city. Everyone I trusted. His voice was almost lost beneath the storm. My father taught me that affection creates weaknesses. My brother proved him right. What happened? He chose the men who wanted my family destroyed. There was no anger in the words. Only an old wound that had learned how to speak without bleeding. So now you control people before they can leave. His eyes met mine. Yes. The admission should have frightened me. Instead, it made him look less like a monster and more like a man trapped inside the armor that had saved him. I opened my hand between us. The brass key caught the terrace light. Damien studied the number engraved along its edge. Every trace of softness left his face. I know where this belongs, he said. Where? His fingers closed around the key. To a safe that disappeared the night my brother betrayed me. Then he looked at my father's locket. And your father was the last man seen carrying it. 3 days later, I walked into the Whitmore Foundation gala wearing my father's locket and Damien Cross's silence beside me. The ballroom glittered above Manhattan. Gold chandeliers. White roses. Champagne moving through the crowd like liquid light. The same people who once ignored me now stepped aside. Not because they knew my name. Because they knew his. Damien had not called me his wife. He had not touched my back or guided me by the arm. He had kept his promise. Still, every eye followed us. Graham stood near the stage, smiling for investors. The moment he saw me, the smile fractured. Vanessa reached me first. Her violet dress matched the ink on the forged contract. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. I was invited. By him? By the shares Graham stole from me. Her face tightened. Then she glanced toward Damien and lowered her voice. I can help you leave. There's a service exit behind the kitchen. A car can be waiting. For one heartbeat, I saw the sister I had spent years hoping existed. Then I remembered the card inside my suitcase. The violet warning. Why would I run now? Because men like Damien don't protect women, Lena. They collect them. Before I could answer, Graham's voice filled the ballroom. He was announcing the sale of Whitmore's waterfront project to a private investment group. A project I recognized. The same property appeared in my father's trust documents. The sale would erase its history permanently. I walked toward the stage. Damien did not stop me. Graham noticed too late. I took the microphone from the stunned event director. Before the transfer is approved, I said, perhaps the investors should know the property is tied to a disputed trust. The room changed. Laughter died. Glasses stopped halfway to mouths. Graham approached me with the smile he used before closing a trap. My stepdaughter is confused. I reviewed the original accounts. You had no authority to access them. I am the named beneficiary. Whispers moved through the crowd. Graham's face reddened. He turned to Damien. Control your wife. The insult struck harder than the command. Every person waited for Damien to pull me away. He stepped forward. Then he moved past me and faced the board. Answer her. 2 words. The room obeyed. A Whitmore attorney tried to explain the transaction. I asked for the authorization number. He gave the wrong one. I asked who had verified the beneficiary release. No one answered. I asked why my retired employee credentials appeared on transfers made after Graham claimed I had been removed from the accounts. The chief financial officer went pale. One question became 5. 5 became evidence. Within minutes, the waterfront sale was suspended pending an independent review. Graham stared at me as if he had never seen me before. For the first time, he looked afraid. Damien did not claim the victory. He stood at the edge of the stage and let the room belong to me. Outside, the terrace doors closed behind us, silencing the panic inside. The city burned below. "You knew I would do that," I said. "I hoped you would. You could have taken the microphone yourself. It was your name they erased." His voice held no command now. Only something raw. "I have lost buildings, men, territories," he said. None of it frightened me. He looked at me. "The thought of you walking away does." My breath caught. He lifted one hand but stopped before touching my face. I closed the distance. The kiss was brief. Chosen. Not surrender. For one fragile moment, I believed we had crossed into something neither of us needed to fear. Later, unable to sleep, I entered Damien's private office looking for the records connected to my father's key. The safe behind his desk was open. Inside lay an older version of the marriage settlement. I unfolded it. The terms were nearly identical. My name. Graham's debt. Damien's acceptance. But the timestamp at the bottom was from 6 hours before Graham placed the contract in front of me. Damien had signed before my stepfamily officially offered me. Footsteps stopped behind me. I turned, holding the document between us. "You did not rescue me from the sale." My voice broke despite everything I did to hold it steady. "You helped arrange it." Damien did not move toward me. That hurt more than denial would have. The contract trembled between my fingers. 6 hours. 6 hours before Graham summoned me into that dining room, Damien had already agreed to take me. "I knew they were preparing to use you," he said. His voice was stripped of its usual control. "Graham needed the debt erased. Someone else needed you removed from the accounts. I gave them a transaction they believed they understood." "A transaction. Lena, that is what you called me?" His eyes closed for 1 second. "A way to get you out of that house alive." The explanation struck every bruise I did not carry on my skin. "You let me believe I had been sold." I needed Graham to believe his plan had worked. And my fear? His jaw tightened. I thought temporary fear was a price I could justify. The room became unbearably quiet. My stepfamily had used my name. Damien had used my terror. Different methods. The same decision. No one had asked me. "You promised there would be no more decisions about my life without me." I made this one before that promise. That does not make it better. "No," the word came quietly. No defense. No excuse. Only the truth arriving too late. I pulled the black onyx ring from my finger. Damien had given it to me before the gala, saying every man in his world would recognize it as protection. I placed it on top of the forged contract. "I was never safe with you," I said. "I was simply useful to a more powerful man." Pain crossed his face. Real pain. But I had learned that a man's pain did not erase what he had done with mine. "I am leaving." Cole appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of my voice. His gaze moved from the contract to Damien. Damien could have ordered the gates closed. He could have doubled the guards. He could have reminded me about the cars waiting beyond the estate. Instead, he opened a drawer and removed a folder. Inside were annulment papers already signed by him. Property transfers. Bank documents restoring every recovered asset to my name. A security report with the addresses of 3 apartments no one connected to Damien Cross. "You prepared these," I whispered. "The night you arrived. Because you expected me to hate you? Because I knew you might have reason to." He set an access card beside the papers. "The gates will open. Cole will take you anywhere you choose. No one follows unless you ask." I wanted him to stop me. The realization made me hate myself. Damien remained behind his desk while I walked out. He gave me the freedom I had demanded. It felt like losing him. By afternoon, I was inside a small apartment overlooking a narrow Brooklyn street. No marble. No guards visible through the windows. Just radiators clicking behind the walls and the sound of strangers living ordinary lives. My phone rang after sunset. Vanessa. I found proof, she whispered. Graham planned everything. The false accounts. The contract. All of it. Where are you? The old Whitmore Records building. He kept files there after your father died. My hand closed around the brass key. Why not bring them to me? Because he's watching me. Her voice broke convincingly. Almost too convincingly. A photograph arrived. A ledger lay open beside a sealed envelope bearing my father's initials. In the corner, a disposal notice showed that the archive was scheduled to be destroyed before midnight. The inventory tag was written in violet ink, but the letters were unnaturally sharp, an imitation of Vanessa's looping hand. It was a trap. It was also the first real sign of my father's evidence, and I had less than an hour before it vanished. I opened Damien's number. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I typed the only warning he would understand. Whitmore Archive. The ink is wrong. If his phone was being watched, the trap already knew where I was going. Damien was the only person who might reach me before the evidence disappeared. I drove to the abandoned records building alone. The brass key opened the side entrance. Inside, dust floated through narrow beams of emergency light. Filing cabinets formed dark corridors around me. Vanessa? No answer. The door slammed shut behind me. A lock turned. Miles away, in Damien's silent office, my message appeared on his screen. Whitmore Archive. The ink is wrong. The emergency lights flickered once. Then Vanessa stepped from between the filing cabinets. She was not alone. Graham stood behind her, his suit wrinkled, his face gray with exhaustion. For the first time in my life, my stepfather looked less like a king than a man waiting for permission to breathe. Vanessa held that permission. I hoped you would come alone, she said. The softness was gone from her voice. What is this? The end of a problem. She placed a ledger on the table between us. My name appeared across dozens of pages. Transfers. Authorizations. Payments routed through accounts I had never seen. A perfect confession written by someone else. You built this trail, I said. Vanessa smiled. Graham built the debt. I built the solution. He looked at her with open hatred. You said Damien would destroy the records. He was supposed to destroy her with them. The truth entered slowly. They had not expected Damien to protect me. They had expected him to discover the stolen money, see my name attached, and remove the threat before I understood what I was holding. My sale had never been payment. It had been an execution without blood. Vanessa stepped closer. You were always going to inherit the controlling shares. Father made certain of that before he died. My fingers closed around the locket. You knew? I found the amended trust years ago. And Graham? He signed what I put in front of him. Graham flinched. All those years, I had feared him. But Vanessa had been the hand inside the glove. The safe, I whispered. Her eyes dropped to the brass key. There you are. Behind the far wall, hidden beneath a rusted directory, I found the keyhole. The lock turned. Inside the safe rested original trust documents, ownership certificates, and a sealed file marked with Damien's family crest. Vanessa reached for them. I grabbed the documents first. A red light blinked above the emergency panel. I had triggered the fire system when I entered the code. Somewhere outside, alarms began to rise. Vanessa's calm shattered. You stupid, the loading bay shutters crashed upward. Glass trembled in its frames as Damien entered through the opening with Cole behind him. For one breath, relief weakened my knees. Then I saw the second door open behind them. Men waited in the darkness. The entire building had been prepared to trap him. Damien. He turned as the first shot cracked through the room. I pulled him behind a concrete column. His body covered mine automatically. "No," I said, pushing the documents into his hands. "Follow me." I knew the floor plan from my father's old permits. A service corridor ran behind the archive wall. We moved through smoke, alarms, and shadows. Damien did not command me. He trusted me. At the final stairwell, Graham blocked our path. Vanessa stood behind him, holding the only exit key. "Give me the file," she said, "or he dies here." Damien looked at me. Not at the weapon. Not at the door. At me. He was ready to sacrifice the evidence. Ready to lose the truth to keep me alive. I understood then what frightened me most. I loved him. And love had arrived at the worst possible moment. I pressed the copy drive into Cole's hand, then lifted the original file. "Take it," I told Vanessa. She stepped forward. The instant her fingers closed around the folder, the sprinkler system erupted. Water blinded the room. Cole opened the emergency latch. Damien pulled me through the doorway as sirens surrounded the building. Outside, he turned back toward Vanessa and Graham. His face became the one the city feared. "I can end this tonight." I caught his hand. My stepfamily had chosen my price. Damien had once chosen my fear. Now everyone waited for me to choose revenge. I looked at the copied evidence in Cole's palm. "They sold my life without asking me," I said. My voice did not shake. "They do not get to choose how this ends either." The Whitmore boardroom had no windows. Only polished wood, 12 leather chairs, and a long table where men had decided my future without ever meeting my eyes. This time, every chair faced me. Vanessa sat beside her attorney. Graham sat 3 seats away, looking 10 years older than he had at the gala. Damien stood at the back of the room. Not beside me. That was my choice. Cole connected the copy drive to the presentation screen. One by one, the false companies appeared. The duplicated invoices. The stolen trust payments. The authorizations created under my identity. Vanessa's expression never changed. "Digital records can be manufactured," she said. "So can signatures," I replied. I placed the original marriage settlement on the table. Then the violet card from my suitcase. Then the ledger she had prepared inside the records building. 3 violet samples. 3 different slants. But each capital letter carried the same tiny break in pressure, the hesitation Vanessa made whenever she tried to disguise her hand. The warning had not been written by an imitator. It had been written by Vanessa pretending to be one. Graham stared at the documents. "You said the card was only meant to frighten her back into line." Vanessa turned toward him. "And you signed everything I put in front of you." That was the moment he finally understood. He had not controlled the conspiracy. He had merely signed it. I opened the sealed file bearing Damien's family crest. Inside was a letter from my father. His handwriting shook across the page, but the meaning was clear. Damien's brother had used Whitmore accounts to finance the betrayal that nearly destroyed the Cross family. My father discovered the transfers and hid the proof before he could deliver it. He had not betrayed Damien. He had tried to warn him. The brass key had never connected our families through guilt. It connected them through an unfinished act of courage. I looked toward Damien. For the first time, the man who feared nothing had tears in his eyes. "My father died protecting the truth," I said. Damien's voice was rough. "And I spent years believing he helped bury it." The final misunderstanding between us broke without ceremony. Not because it no longer mattered. Because the truth finally had somewhere to stand. Cole displayed the amended trust. My father had left me 51% of Whitmore development. Vanessa's calm disappeared. You don't know how to run this company. No, I said. But I know how to stop it from stealing. I removed her from the board. Then Graham. The authorities waiting outside entered only after I signed the complaint myself. Damien did not make a call. He did not threaten anyone. He let justice carry my name. When the room emptied, he approached the table and placed the onyx ring beside the forged contract. I used this to tell the world you were under my protection, he said. But protection does not make you mine. He tore his copy of the settlement in half. Then again. Every false claim became pieces beneath his hands. You owe me nothing, Lena. Not loyalty. Not forgiveness. Not love. The doors behind me were open. No guards blocked them. No agreement held me there. Damien stepped back. If you choose to leave, I will never stop you. I looked at the man my family had called a monster. The man who had frightened me. Failed me. Changed for me. Then he asked the one question no one had ever given me the right to answer. Someday, not because of debt, fear, or protection, would you choose to become my wife? My answer was not yes. Not yet. I stepped toward Damien until only the torn contract remained between us. I will not marry a man because he changed during a crisis, I said. I will marry him only if he keeps changing after the danger is gone. He absorbed the words without flinching. What would that require? No hidden decisions. No innocent people paying for your power. No calling control protection. And if I fail? I leave. His gaze held mine. Then I will give you no reason to. 6 months later, the old Whitmore Records building no longer smelled of dust and fear. Sunlight crossed restored brick walls. Accountants worked behind glass offices. Investigators filled shelves with case files belonging to families whose savings had vanished into companies like ours once had. The name on the front door read, Heart Forensic Accountability. Not Whitmore. Not Cross. Mine. The silver locket rested against my throat, but the brass key inside it no longer opened a buried safe. I had remade the lock and used it for my private office. My father's final clue now opened the future he had tried to protect. Graham and Vanessa awaited trial. The company assets they had hidden were being returned through court orders bearing my signature. Damien never interfered. Not once. His world changed more slowly. Warehouses became legitimate shipping businesses. Cash operations became audited companies. Men who had survived by fear learned that Damien Cross now demanded something harder than obedience. Accountability. He lost territory. He lost allies. He never asked me to reward him for either. One evening, a knock sounded against my office door. Damien stood outside. He owned half the building next door. He still waited for permission to enter mine. Come in. He carried a narrow wooden box. Inside lay the original forged contract, the one preserved as evidence. I thought the court would keep it. The case no longer needs the paper itself. And now? Now it belongs to you. We took it to the courtyard behind the building. I struck the match. The false signature curled first. Then Graham's terms. Then the sentence that had named me as payment. Damien watched the ashes lift into the night. No debt remains between us, he said. There never was one. 3 weeks later, we married beneath the same courtyard lights. No chandeliers. No armed procession. No board members waiting to profit from my answer. Cole stood beside Damien. A retired judge performed the ceremony. The people from my firm filled the small rows of chairs. Damien made no vow to possess me. He promised to tell me the truth before fear could turn it into silence. I promised to love the man he chose to become, not the power he once used to survive. When the judge asked for my answer, Damien did not look certain. The most feared man in the city stood before me with empty hands. Waiting. Yes, I said. His breath broke. Later, when the courtyard had gone quiet, he touched the locket at my throat. My wife, he whispered. Not a claim. A question he would keep asking through every choice that followed. I placed his hand over my heart. Your beloved wife. My stepfamily had sold me to a monster. But a man is not redeemed by the darkness he survives. He is redeemed by what he is willing to surrender. Damien surrendered his control. I surrendered nothing. And that was why my love could finally be a gift, not a payment.